Man, it's got to be the shoes. It's got to be the shoes, man. Or maybe the beard, or maybe it's Rocket Man, or maybe it's the judge. Who knows? But welcome everybody into the Denver Bronco Roundup. We're going to get talking a little bit of Broncos football. We are brought to you by Rocky Mountain Sports Network. We are sponsored by Morgan Trinkets. If you do me a favor, man, like the Rocky Mountain Sports Network page. I know a lot of you guys come over on our Denver Bronco Roundup page. Search out Rocky Mountain Sports Network, man. We'd love to get the likes. We're almost to 1,000, and we're like at 1,800 over on the Denver Bronco Roundup. So please, please, please give that Rocky Mountain Sports Network Facebook page a like. I see Ernie Mays coming over on YouTube. We like everyone coming over on YouTube. We'll talk to Ernie Mays here in a second. My name is Keith Brugman. Man, I'm fired up for a Friday night. It's going to be fun, fun, fun. And I got my good friends here as well, man. Starting off on to the side of me this evening. We'll start off with the Rocket Man. Rocket Man, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well, Keith. Can't wait to have another great episode of the Bronco Roundup on a great Friday night. I mean, there's really nothing else I'd rather be, and no other place I'd rather be than right here with you guys. So, and all of our amazing fans. So, can't wait to get into it. A lot of off-season talk into training camp, I should say. So, I just can't wait to get into it, and I'm excited.
Yeah, very excited, man. Off-season's always, well, as of lately, has been some of the most exciting times for Broncos country, man. Excited for the regular season and ready for it to get kicked off. But first, we got to get through this off-season, and first, we got to get through these introductions, man. I got to say hello to the judge himself, Mr. Jody Moncrief. How we doing, sir?
What's up, everyone? Ready for a good show tonight? Ready for some good Bronco debate.
Yeah, man. In for some really good Bronco debate, man. But first and foremost, and I got to get to the chat. Got to get over to our friends and say hello to Mr. Ernie Mays, who's coming in and saying, "Go Broncos country only." Hello, Keith and Jody and Mile High Dutchie. He says no Dutchie, but we do got the judge, man. Don't forget about the judge, man. Ernie, Albert usually is in on our Tuesday show because we do a Tuesday and a Friday show. If you want to make sure that you catch Albert, make sure you catch that Tuesday show. If you want to catch the judge, man, he's been hanging out on Friday nights with us, man. So make sure you're tuning in on Friday nights. But every now and then, it's kind of rare, it seems like these days, we get the four horsemen together, man. We all talk some Broncos football. And let's start it off tonight with, I'm going to go over to Trevor first. And let's talk a little David Shaw, man. You brought this topic up. David Shaw was brought in. I even forget I had it all lined up, and now I don't have my notes in front of me. I just realized, but it was brought in as a front office personnel, and I guess brings a lot of experience, and maybe might be pushing some people around in that front office. But talk about it, Trevor.
Yeah, so the Broncos actually made a little bit of a surprising move. Not surprising the name because they've been connected to David Shaw for a while now. But again, they brought him in as a senior personnel executive for the Denver Broncos. That's what David Shaw's new role will be. This is an interesting move, I think, for the Broncos. Again, I think Shaw a little bit more on the coaching side of things. Hasn't really had a front office role. I think he went on record to say that this is a new experience for him. He's taking it one day at a time. So it sounds like he's opening up the the rails a little bit for him to be a front office executive maybe one day. But I think he definitely brings experience with Sean Payton as well. He has that connectivity with Sean Payton, so that's always nice to have. But I think that we should I don't think we should expect David Shaw to be taking over George Paton's job anytime soon. I just think that he's needs a little bit more seasoning in the front office role. We don't even know. He don't even know if that's going to be something he wants to do long term. So I think it's a new role for him. He's open minded to it. I think it's great for the Broncos. I mean, again, David Shaw, he's produced a lot of great, players in the NFL over his time. At Stanford. So I think it's a great move for the Broncos. Anytime you can bring in more personnel from the outside of the organization, I think it's great for your front office. And, to be able to bring in more talent, it definitely doesn't hurt. So I think a great job by George Paton, Sean Payton, whoever brought in David Shaw. I mean, who knows? Right. But I think maybe mutual decision for everybody. I think it's a great decision for the Broncos, and I'm excited to see what David Shaw brings to the table.
Very good, man. Seen some good head nodding from Mr. Jody Moncrief on that as well, man. I don't know if it was what it was an agreement to. So Jody, man, David Shaw comes in, bolsters the front office? Question mark. What are your thoughts, buddy?
I was pretty much in agreement with what Trevor said. The one I really agreed with is don't think this is a replace George Paton type move. He's never had, like Trevor said, never had any front office experience of any type. So I wouldn't, if that's what you want, I wouldn't expect that. And if that's what you want, I'm not sure why, because he's less experienced in that position than George Paton was when he took over. So, but yeah, I think it can't hurt to have more good minds in the office. And Stanford, a hard school to recruit at and stuff. He was winning 10, 11, 12 games there every year, recruited Andrew Luck there, so he knows a thing or two.
Yeah, not only recruiting, but really just the handcuffs that he had on him being at Stanford. Again, this is a place where you need to have the grades. You are an academic school, first and foremost. That does not, there is no passes for that at Stanford. You know what I mean? So you're talking about some of the best minds in the country going out there and also then being football players, so it's not an easy place to be competitive in the end, in the college football landscape. Because of that, I don't think that David Shaw got enough credit, especially as transfer portal opened up and more guys started shifting all around. Nobody was going to Stanford. If anything, they were leaving Stanford. You know what I mean? So what he was able to do under the conditions that he was in was actually pretty remarkable. It wasn't that long ago he was being highly recruited for head coaching positions when he was in the meat of his Stanford years. And then as time went on, it's like it happens sometimes. Maybe you waited a little bit too long. Those opportunities kind of dried up and never really got that opportunity to really be a head coach here in the NFL. But now he moves into the front office for the Denver Broncos. And I think you guys are right. I don't think it's particularly a move towards George Paton's job. But I do want to bring this question to you. I'll say hello to a couple of people, and then we'll say I want to get this from you. What does he bring? What does he bring to this front office? But first, like I said, I want to say hello to Mark Calderio. He's coming in saying, good evening, guys. How are things, man? Well, Friday night, man, talking Denver Broncos football. Got my friends in the chat. Got my friends on the screen, man. Doing pretty dang good. I appreciate it, Mark, and hope you're doing good too, man. If you have any questions, any thoughts, please just jump them in there. And then we got D-Rock coming in over on YouTube saying, hey, fellas, and the chat and clapping it up, buddy. Appreciate it. D-Rock coming in here, man. If you have any thoughts as well, kick it off. But I'm going to kick it off over with Trevor first, man. What do you get out of a David Shaw hiring? You guys said he's not going to take George Paton's job. He's obviously up in the front office. He's not down there coaching like he used to be doing. So what value do you think he brings to this organization, Trevor?
I think David Shaw, I think he brings that, that on the field presence that he and why I say this is because I think he knows where talented players are on either side of the ball. I mean, look at some of the players he's drafted guys that he's had in the system that have become NFL players, not just Andrew Luck, but David DeCastro. We look at Solomon Thomas, so a bunch of different guys that Anders Pete, another guy that's on this Broncos roster right now as a depth guy. So he's brought in and looked at overall, a lot of talent, and I think he knows what talent looks like. So just another, I think, pair of eyes, instead of eyes to kind of look at on the field. I think more of a scouting role, I would say. I think that's what he really brings to this team and gives the Broncos a fresh new pair of eyes that have not been in the building yet. Again, we remember Cody Reagor is another guy that they brought in this year as well to the front office. So I really like how Sean Payton and George Payton are bringing in multiple people from the outside of the organization to get eyes set on the field and just so they can get the best talent possible for this roster. So I really like that from that perspective. But I think that's what Shaw brings, is that he's been that head coach before, so he sees talent. He knows talent. He's recruited before, so he knows what talent looks like on either side of the ball, not just one-dimensional. So I really like that from a Shaw perspective. I think that's what he brings. And I wouldn't rule him out maybe joining Sean Payton's staff down the line if he didn't want to be in a front office role.
Very good, man. Anything to add, Jody? What are your thoughts on this, man?
No, I'm in agreement. I think it's another set of eyes. Look at the type of talent he was able to get at Stanford and win there. And if you can go, get that type of talent that no one's looking at, I think that's what he's after. And that's what you had to get at Stanford. You weren't getting 5-star recruits every day at Stanford. So, and to, be competitive in the Pac-12 like he was.
I agree, man. For me, he is that kind of type of personnel guy. When you talk about, you have not only scouting for college and, but you also have pro scouting, in your organization. And then you have a guy like David Shaw that can maybe be, as you said, Trevor, a second set of eyes, a guy that can kind of oversee this and kind of filter through. I also see that, let's face it, a lot of people are saying we're the Saints of the West, or, the New Orleans Broncos, or whatever you want to talk about, because of all the ties to that portion of the country. David Shaw is from a different side of the country and brings in, a different, set of eyes from a different coast, I guess is the best way to put it as well, as of recent. So I like this one from D-Rock. He says, strange coincidence regarding David Shaw. The morning of the hiring, I was meal prepping, and for some odd reason, I thought of him. No idea why. I kid you not, about an hour later, he was signed. So isn't that wild, man? You get almost like those deja vu type of moments, man. All of a sudden, someone pops in your brain. Next thing you know, they're in the news for one reason or another. Who knows, man? Who knows, D-Rock? Who knows why this universe works the way it does? And that being said, man, let's transition out of the front office, man. I want to, I guess we're kind of rewinding a little bit, but also looking towards the future. We've been talking a lot about some of these guys that have left the Denver Broncos, and it got me thinking about maybe we should, kind of, I don't know, rank, rate, somehow try to validate, both the player that is now gone and the player that might be replacing that player. So, I wanted to get an idea of, like I said, some key players that walked out the doors as of lately, and their key replacements. And just to kind of give an idea, if I'll use, we're not going to use this person, but we'll use Jonathan Harris as an example, right? Jonathan Harris comes in and he's let's just say we're going to rank him as overall a 10. Okay. And then his replacement comes in, let's say John Franklin Meinerz, right? Now, if we thought John Franklin Meinerz was less, we would say maybe he was a 7. Maybe if he's better, we were saying he's a 12, whatever it happens to be. But I also want to get an idea of where you think the replacement comes in. We'll start all the way on the back end. We're going to start a guy that we just ended up talking a little bit about on Tuesday. Let's talk a little bit about Justin Simmons. And I'll start off with Jody. Jody, again, Justin Simmons held court back there in the back end of the defense for quite a few years for us. Now we're going to have to move on. That being said, how big of a loss will Justin Simmons be, and rank his replacements on a scale of 1 to 10?
I'll rank 2 things: his off-field leadership, what he did for the community, all that stuff. That's a 10 plus. That isn't going to get replaced. His on-field, I'm going to give that a solid 8. I mean, Justin Simmons was a leader on the field. He was pretty durable. One game that sticks in my mind is the Minnesota game, when, like 3 plays in a row, when Minnesota was going down to score or take the lead, whatever, he covered T.J. Hawkinson and deflected like 3 balls like right in a row. That's going to be hard to replace. He's been All Pro, voted one of the top safeties. That's going to be hard to replace. My only knock with Simmons is his PFF grade has went down every year for the past 3-4 years. Whatever you think of PFF, and Brandon Jones, I'm middle on it. I don't hate the signing. I don't hate the signing. I agree with Trevor. He needs to show that he can stay on the field and be a 17-week starter. But what he showed last year in Miami flashes. If he can put that together for 17 weeks, then I think we're more than fine with him back there.
I was just going to say, so if you think Justin Simmons was a 10, where would you rank Brandon Jones?
I'll say a 5 or 6 because we don't know yet. If he stays healthy and produces like he did last year, I think he can be up there, 8, 9. I think he can be up there as close as what Simmons was. And I think what else made Simmons replaceable is they liked what they seen in PJ Locke. PJ Locke, along with same thing with Caden Stearns. If he can stay healthy, 2 years ago he really showed that. I mean, he played well until he got hurt. If those two guys can stay healthy, I don't think you'll miss Justin Simmons as much as people think you will.
Very good.
But that is a big question mark, health.
I agree, man. There are some ifs in there, right, man? Ifs are a big one in this whole equation. I think for all of these, I think whenever you're replacing someone that was someone reliable, and that's the guys we're going to be talking about, there's going to be some ifs. Trevor, what are your thoughts? Sum it up a little bit quicker if you don't mind. I want to jump back into the comments, but what are your thoughts on Simmons, his replaceability, and ranking his replacements?
Yeah, I mean, again, I copy whatever Jody said, and I said it multiple times on this show that I think Justin Simmons is going to be missed more than we're going to realize. I think out of all the players that Denver let go this offseason, Justin Simmons is going to be one of the toughest ones to replace. I think, yes, he's not the Pro Bowl safety that he was, in previous years last year, but he was a guy that brought durability. He knew he was going to start, and I think that means something to this team, and that means a lot to the guy next to you. He was a captain of this defense, and so his presence is going to be lost on and off the field. Honestly, it's great that he's continuing to stay active in the community, in the Denver community, even though he's not going to be a Denver Bronco. Odds are so. I mean, ranking his replacements again, it's tough because Brandon Jones I'm not very high on, but I don't know that Brandon Jones is going to be the starter all the time. I think that Brandon Jones, he's a rotational safety. I think we're going to see some different packages with Brandon Jones, PJ Locke, Caden Stearns, and maybe even Riley Moss if Riley Moss doesn't work out at cornerback. So for me, rating from what I would rate it probably a C right now as far as a grade. Give it. I'm not overly high on Brandon Jones, but I understand. Again, we have to understand where this Broncos team is at, though. They're not going to go out and get a star. They're not going to go pay another safety big money after releasing Justin Simmons. So, and then on plus, again, we don't like talking about Russell Wilson, but it's going to be a guy that we're going to have to continue to talk about because it does impact this Broncos team with having to eat $53 million. You're probably not spending big money on a safety. So unless you go draft one high, you're going to have to get a rotational safety in there worth a lot less money. And obviously there's a reason for that. So the production's there, or is not there for the lack thereof. So you're getting younger in the safety room, but again, it's not going to be near the production that you would have gotten from Justin Simmons, of course. It's not overly high on overall grade C right now. Hopefully you're going to see something from Brandon Jones though going forward, and maybe somebody else in the safety room steps up.
I agree. I appreciate you keeping it short, Trevor, so I could jump into these comments. Really quick though, my thoughts on it. I Justin Simmons, I think maybe we overvalued, and the reason I say that is because one thing. Look what Jody just pointed out: the PFF grades continuing to go down. Yes, he was a great leader. Yes, he's a fantastic man. Yes, he's great in the community. But my concern is maybe we have overvalued him a little bit, because it's not like everybody's out there jumping all over Justin Simmons at this point too. I think there's going to be a lot of players. Jody, if you can mute. I think there's going to be a lot of players that we see step up and look different because they're put in position to put into a different position. So for me, I'm not expecting a huge fall off. I'm gonna, if I was to rank the replacements on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm gonna say an 8. But Phil's coming in here, man. Phil McLaughlin dropping stars, man. Gotta love Phil. Gotta love everybody in here. Said hello to Pearl, or Pearl jumped up on the screen a little bit earlier. He said hello to D-Rock. Appreciate everyone coming in, but Phil dropping stars, and he has a question along with the stars. He's saying, "Good evening, Keith, Trevor, and Judge Moncrief. What is the position other than QB that you feel is most improved this year?" I'm going to start off with a Judge on this one because it'll be shorter. Just kidding. Judge, what do you got, buddy?
I think this one's probably the easiest. D line for sure. John Franklin Myers, Roach from New Orleans. You should get a Razawike back. For me, D line. It's really not even close.
Slapping it down, D line, man. Trevor, you got a different answer other than D line?
Ooh, yeah, that was my answer.
Yeah.
Anywhere else, it's honestly, and I would love to pick another position, but it's just like it's really hard to say that. Oh, yeah, that's an upgrade right now. Maybe wide receiver with Josh Reynolds, productivity wise. I think Josh Reynolds' floor is higher than Jerry Jeudy's was, but Jerry Jeudy's obviously going to have the upside. So I would say a wide receiver with Josh Reynolds. I think he will be an upgrade over Jerry Jeudy from my production standpoint. But one quick note, Keith, before we move on from Justin Simmons. I don't think Justin Simmons is on the open market because of lack of production necessarily. I think that Justin Simmons realizes this is probably one of his last chances of getting a contract and being. I don't think he wants to just sign with any team. I think if he wanted to do that and chase the money, he would have already done that. I think Justin Simmons wants to go to a Super Bowl contender. That's where I think he wants to go to. So he's going to be picky and choosy on where he goes. Maybe there's an injury we see in training camp, and then we see Justin Simmons signing. I think that's something we have to factor in with Justin Simmons. It's not just his productivity, but also he wants to make sure it's the right fit and go to the playoffs, obviously. And that's something he struggled with here in Denver. And I just think he wants to go to the right fit and is being patient right now, which I think hopefully it'll pay off for him in the long run.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I also just know how much the safety position is struggling to get paid this offseason. You know what I mean? So, I was just trying to put 1 and 1 make 2, but there is a possibility that, there's that factor of him maybe holding out for something that's best for him, right? But getting to Phil's question, man, this is a tough one, Phil. I'd love to, like Trevor was saying, I'd love to be able to go and there's so many positions. I don't know where to go, but I am going to go to that wide receiver position. I mean, we jettison a Jerry Jeudy, which at least from a social media standpoint was somewhat of a headache. I'll just put it that way. Don't know how much production we necessarily got out of him on the field. Certainly not the production that we drafted him at. So we move on from him. But I think when you start looking at everything in context, I mean, yes, you get a Josh Reynolds, but you also get a Tim Patrick back. You bring in a Devon Vele. You have Marvin Mims in his second year and supposed to be sorry again?
Troy Franklin.
Yeah, Troy Franklin. He's getting there, man. I'm getting there, man. Marvin Mims in his second year, and expected to be stepping up in a big role, and then you add in Troy Franklin. You're absolutely right. I think that there's reason that you could absolutely say that it's the most improved. Some of that improvement is just from the fact, like Tim Patrick. If Tim Patrick comes back and he's the Tim Patrick of 2019, then holy cow, we're all set to go, right? But we need to see that play out, man. I still think from a wide receiver room, like mental aspect, I like where this room is at. I think they're in a good mental space where they're all competing. They're all in a positive mindset. And then, boy, I just almost forgot. Cortland Sutton comes in, and Cortland Sutton starts looking good. I guess we need to talk about him as well. It's weird, man, because him being kind of out of the mix, man, I almost missed Cortland Sutton. So, but that's not really an improvement part. That's just a piece of the puzzle, I guess. So,
what I want Keith to add up on that, what I like from Denver's standpoint this season, I like the wide receiver depth that this team has, and then they definitely add more depth this offseason. You're hoping Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, and some of those younger guys can produce. But I mean, look at the amount of veterans you have. I mean, Tim Patrick. We talk about Josh Reynolds. You have Cortland Sutton. I mean, the list continues. Little Jordan Humphrey. We don't even talk about him. I mean, we haven't talked about him much. So it's just like you have just so many.
Jalen Virgil was supposedly looking fantastic out there. Brandon Johnson's still on there. David Sills. You know what I mean? It's like, my goodness. I mean, it's going to be a tough thin down. There's certainly depth. It'll be interesting to see how this all comes about. I was over on the K&K Sports Show not that long ago, and I was saying, the Broncos team, I feel like, is full of a lot of B players. You know what I mean? And I'm looking for a lot more A players. Yeah, you can point out, PS2, he's an A player. All right, we got him. All right, but you start getting beyond that, and you're like, maybe he's a B plus, a B minus, a B plus, a B, a B plus. You know what I mean? It doesn't make you. None of them are like, oh man, that's an A plus player, man. It's tough to find those guys on our roster, man. So, that being said, I'm expecting, I guess, some turnaround. I guess
that's what you're expecting this season. That's what you have to find out this season. Not only what Bo Nix can do, but what players do you have to surround Bo Nix and this team? Who is going to be on this team going forward? Look how many guys are going to be up for contract extensions at the end of the year. I mean, just there and the Broncos' amount of cap space they're going to have. This is the year you're going to have to find out on both sides of the ball what players are here long term and what players are gone after this year.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that too, man. We're going to work through. I want to get through just maybe one or two more of these guys that have left and their replacements, and one that I'm glad Victor's not in here. Victor would have been lighting us up because I want to talk about Josey Jewell next. And I was going to get to that comment because there's one that says, D-Rock in there saying the outlaw. That really stung. Middle linebacker Josey Jewell. Let's jump into that position. Go to the judge first, man. What are your thoughts, man? It seems like we're definitely looking for someone to step up in that role. Sanders going down certainly didn't help make that decision any easier. I'm not sure if he would have been linebacker or edge, but it takes him kind of out of the mix altogether. What are you thinking, man? Is it going to be, how tough is it going to be to replace an outlaw, the outlaw and Josey Jewell, and how would you rank his replacements?
On field, I think it can be replaced, and I think it's not going to be with Cody Barton. I think they have high hopes for Jonas Griffith, and if he can stay healthy again, we talk about staying healthy, but he's shown a lot of talent, and I think that's the guy that they want to fill that role. Now, where I think Josey Jewell is really going to be missed is he was your play caller for the last 2, 3, 4 years, whatever it was. He not great, but he was a sure tackler. Came up with some big plays, some big interceptions against Kansas City, and that is going to be missed. The play calling, I think they don't have a guy that's ever really called plays on this team, and it's not just put another green dot on someone else's helmet. I think that's going to be missed huge. But I don't blame Denver. You couldn't pay Josey Jewell what Carolina offered. Even if you were right on your cap, I don't think Denver would have matched that, even if they weren't eating all this money on Russ. There's no way that they match that regardless. So
yeah, Carolina thought very highly of the outlaw. That's for dang sure, man. Right. Trevor, what are your thoughts on Josey Jewell and his replacements and maybe ranking those guys?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not a big fan of Cody Barton and Jonas Griffith. Jonas Griffith not playing for 2 years is definitely a concern. For me, I think that it's going to be a position where it's going to be a work in progress with this team. Drew Sanders being out. I mean, again, we don't know if he was going to be your inside linebacker or if he's going to be an edge rusher. We have no clue on that. We have no clarity on that. Kind of seems like they just keep going back and forth with him on that. So for me, letting Josey Jewell, I think, is a big hit for this team. But again, Josey Jewell is going to be 30 in December, so it's like something you want at linebacker. At some point in time, you need to start getting younger at some of these other positions. I wish they would have addressed it in the draft. I will continue to say this guy, but Peyton Wilson was sitting right there in the draft for you, and that was a guy that I again, injury history for sure, but a guy that I think really had a lot of upside, I think, in him. So it's just like, but you can't fill all the holes, right? Denver had a lot of, they didn't have a lot of flexibility this year with the cap and the draft picks. So we're not going to be able to fill every single hole that you have in this roster this year. So I think it's something we have to continue to point out. They're going to have to take risk on guys to hope that they're going to hit on some of these guys, and that's what they did with Cody Barton. Certainly seems like they have confidence in Jonas Griffith as well. So I mean, I'm not overly high on this inside linebacker room whatsoever.
Boy, getting us all psyched, Trevor. Appreciate it so much. Want to hit Paul's comment. I think, Paul, because he says no, Singleton had the green dot last year. I think Singleton did have the green dot for a few games. I know that for sure, but I know that Jewell was the main guy. I know that I'll go back, and he says check the tape. I'll check the tape. I'll check the tape, Paul. But I'm pretty sure that at least for the majority of the time, it was Jewell that had that dot, and Singleton did have it. And the reason I say that is because I remember when Singleton did get the dot for the first time, and it seemed like he kind of struggled with it a little bit, trying to get things lined up. Wasn't as clean and or consistent as what we saw in Josey Jewell. And that's one thing that I think that we will see have to kind of work out and play out. Make sure that Alex can do that. Again, this is a guy that, when we brought him in, we're thinking, hey, this is a guy who's got some high upside as a special teamer. So big jump to all of a sudden be wearing that dot and getting everybody lined up all the time. Don't get me wrong. I think he's grown a lot with his time in the Broncos. I think he's up to the task. I think that he's capable of doing it now, especially that it's going to be almost obviously his full-time job. But I'm right there with Jody, man. I think first dibs is going to go to Jonas Griffith, and I think Cody Barton's going to come in second. I like Jonas Griffith, and I think he has a lot of length. As most middle linebackers, he's going to have still struggle in coverage a little bit, but not nearly as bad as Cody Barton. And I think that's why he gets the nod. Health is the biggest thing, though. Health is the biggest thing, and because of that, I think you have to look at it as a slight downgrade, just because of, at least as of recently, how consistent Jewell has been. It's at one point he wasn't, but now he has been. So.
No, I was going to say, I agree with you guys. Cody Barton, I think, is more of a run guy. He's more of a run stuffer, I think, in my opinion. I think that Josey Jewell is definitely better in coverage. I think that would be the difference for me. And Jonas Griffith, again, we just not have seen a lot out of him yet to determine what he is exactly. But I have a question for you guys, if you don't mind. Inside linebacker, do you think that starting right next to Singleton, do you think that starting inside linebacker is on this roster right now, or do you think Denver, knowing how much teams release guys, do you think there's a chance that there's a guy out there that Denver may go out there and pursue, or are they just satisfied with what they have right now?
I'll go quickly. I think they're fairly happy with Jonas Griffith, and I think that's the direction they're going to go, mainly because I know that there's going to be releases, but I don't think you'll see a release that's going to be as good a quality as what you already have on your roster or better. That's kind of where I'm going at. Jody, what are your thoughts, man?
I agree totally. The only way it's really not Jonas Griffith is if he bombs in training camp early or gets hurt again. If there's an injury, then obviously they're going to have to go do something. Or if there's a big name, somebody that gets released, there's always that one big name guy that always gets released for some reason, maybe. But as of right now, I don't think so.
Yeah, I guess we're kind of in agreement. Trevor, do you have a slightly different thought on that?
I'm just not as confident in the inside linebackers on this roster as you guys are. But I mean, again,
Okay.
we'll see. We'll see what training camp brings. I don't think either guy, Jonas Griffith or Cody Barton, I'm not willing to say either one of those guys is a starter right now, because I think it's one of those positions where competition is going to be the determination on all this. And if either guy can't do it, I don't see why, if Sean Payton wants to win this year, why don't you go out there and get an upgrade? You have a little bit of cap space to do so, and maybe they save a little bit more going into or after training camp, so you can go after somebody. But I don't think that you can be satisfied with inside linebacker right now. You just got to see how these guys play it out, and then from there, maybe they do make an upgrade. But I think it's one of those positions where we're going to have to watch. I think, like Pearl just said, the waiver wire. We're definitely going to have to watch inside linebacker because that's definitely a need and one of the weaker points on this team's defense.
Don't laugh at Paul, but he's coming in. What are your thoughts on Strnad?
I was never really a Strnad fan.
Okay.
But I will kind of disagree with. I'm not high on this middle linebacker room, and it's probably the weakest spot on this defense, in my opinion, and not even close. But I think if Jonas Griffith can get back to 2 years ago, then Denver will be satisfied. If that doesn't play out, then I think, yeah, they're going to look somewhere else. They're not going to be content to just say, we're eating whatever 53 million of rust. We don't have any money. Not when they just signed a guy from the UFL or whatever for 3 years and gave him decent money. So I think this all is Jonas Griffith. If he wants this job, go earn it and win it, and they won't go get someone. If he bombs, then yeah, all hands on deck, and they're going to get somebody.
Yeah, if he bombs, we're all in trouble. But I'll tell you what, guys, we're one person that doesn't bomb. In fact, they are the bomb. That's Morgan Trinkets. Morgan Trinkets is your headquarters for Southwest Jewelry, Pottery, and Estate Gold at wholesale prices. Once a nationwide country, now, concentrate just in northern Colorado, southern Wyoming. 33 years experience, guys. So head on over to Morgan Trinkets. If you don't see what you like, by all means, message them. They have a huge back stock of inventory that they can find the piece that's just right for you. Any purchase over $50 via PayPal on their Facebook page is free shipping. And if you catch them at one of their shows, and if you go over to Morgan Trinkets right now or on Facebook, you can see all the amazing shows they got lined up for the summer. Then you can transact by any major credit card. Morgan Trinkets is your place for not only Southwest Jewelry, Pottery, and Estate Gold, but silver, all sterling silver, 100%, starting at $10, going all the way up to $2,000 as well. So, man, talk about a lineup of fantastic products. Head on over to Morgan Trinkets today. That's Morgan Trinkets on Facebook for your headquarters, Southwest Jewelry, Pottery, and Estate Gold wholesale prices. Trevor is ready to talk about something. What do you got, Trevor?
No, I just want to mention another name that Sean Payton has actually mentioned that we haven't mentioned yet, and I think we maybe mentioned a previous show, but Lavelle Bailey, that's a guy that is in competition at inside linebacker. Sean Payton mentioned him specifically himself, along with Jonas Griffith and Cody Barton. So it seems like Bailey is going to be in the competition with Barton and Jonas Griffith as well. So that's just another name to keep an eye on going forward.
That's a very good point, man. Very good point. The point I was going to make, too, right on this before we jump off of middle linebacker was keep in mind it was Jonas Griffith that was all lined up to start alongside Josie Jewell until he got hurt, and Alex Singleton got his opportunity, and Alex Singleton never looked back. Let's go ahead and let's move up onto that offensive side of the ball now. I want to start talking about Lloyd Cushenberry. Lloyd Cushenberry, talk about another guy that went out there and got paid. And Lloyd Cushenberry got the bank, man, and don't I if anybody was listening to any of our prior podcast, I was like, man, we got to keep this guy, we got to keep this guy, we got to keep this guy until I saw what he got paid, and then I'm like, no, we couldn't pay that, had to let him go. That being said, I'll start off with Jody, the judge himself, man. Lloyd Cushenberry gone. I know that a lot of people were, just a couple of years ago, not all that high on him. He seemed like he played back well enough to get a decent contract somewhere else, but now we're looking for his replacement. What do you think about Lloyd Cushenberry and his replacements and their value, I guess you could say?
I think he falls into the same category as Josie Jewell. He was, in my opinion, overpaid by the Titans, and Denver was never really going to match that. But last year he was the leader of this team. He was smart. He called plays out. He was probably a top 10 to 12 center last year, and that's going to be hard to replace. Was that because he was in a contract year? I don't know, because we didn't see it the other 3 years. So we're about to find out this year. And then what's on this roster? I have to give it an unknown because I don't know. Alex Forsyth, rookie last year, 7th round pick. He does have playing experience with Bo Nix. Does that help? Now I think that might give him a little leg up, but I don't know. Luke Wattenberg, I was never high on when he was at guard. He really kind of disliked him at guard, but it seems like he's the dark horse and he's getting a lot of reps with the ones there, so they like something there. And then Mustafa, he has starting experience. Um, if the other two bomb out or one bomb out, I think he makes his roster. I think he's probably the most expendable because of price. Um, so I think it is a major unknown because you don't. Two of the three guys competing there have never started games in center in the NFL.
There you go, man. You're not giving me the warm and fuzzy for the Cushenberry replacement as of yet. Trevor, maybe he can make me feel a little bit better. Trevor, what are you thinking about Lloyd Cushenberry, his departure, and kind of ranking or rating his replacements?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a tough loss, but it's one of those things where you can't pay everybody. Denver also has a history of not paying centers. I mean, we look at Matt Paradis all the way back to him. There's another name that I'm just
Glasgow, Graham Glasgow.
Yeah, but there was they got start with the Jets. Connor McGovern. Yeah, so that's another guy that they didn't pay. So they kind of have a history of this. I'm not surprised. They didn't pay. But I think that Denver, again, where the cap's at, you can't pay everybody. I think they also have something in Forsyth as well. And Wattenberg, I think that's a competition that may go down in preseason. That's another competition that this roster is having to go through right now. I think Sean Payton, he just loves competition. And I think that's, I know we're seeing Wattenberg get a lot of the snaps right now per other media people that were there to watch practice. But keep in mind, George Payton did come out to the media and say at Forsyth they see him as the starter. So I'm kind of back and forth on this. Wattenberg, Forsyth, I think that might be the competition there. Mustafa also could be in that competition. But I think it's to be determined on some of these centers, Wattenberg and Forsyth. Let's see how these guys do. Cushenberry was probably your third best offensive lineman on this team last year, and you lost him. Got to see better years, I think, from Ben Powers and Mike McGlinchey. To me, those guys didn't play up to their contracts. So you need to bounce back years from them. You need to see them improve in the second year in this system. But I like the overall depth to this offensive line and what Denver added. So may the best man win, like most of these positions on this roster this year. But I want to quickly note that Cushenberry's contract is actually a 2-year, $30 million deal because they can cut him in 2026, and the dead cap hit is $9 million. So it's not as big as we may have first thought it might be. So I guess you can make your determination if that was worth it or not for the Broncos. Probably not, because again, you just can't pay everybody, and this offensive line's also already very expensive. So
yeah, we wouldn't have been able to get to those numbers without reworking a few more contracts or letting a few more guys walk. And like I said, I liked Lloyd Cushenberry. I think he's one of the most important things you need at center, and that's smart. He's a very, very smart guy. And the physicality was coming along. I think he played well last year. I think it's going to be tough to replace both pieces of that. I think we have I think Forsyth is a physical beast. He needs to get I'm hoping that he has the mental side of it. I don't know the guy. You know what I mean? We'll just have to see how that plays out. That's kind of my hope, is that Forsyth gets that start. Wattenberg, obviously, second. And Mustafa third. I'm going to go rapid fire, though, on a couple of questions that are coming in on the chat, and then we're going to round out a few questions as well that we had going on. So this is going a lot longer than I expected, guys. So Will might take some of our thoughts from what we had planned and circle it around onto a Tuesday show if we need to. So D-Rock's coming in here, and he wants to know, will Ben Powers be the linchpin of the offensive line? I'm going to go to Jody first, man. Is it Ben Powers that's the linchpin? And if not, who is that guy?
No, I don't think so, but he needs to be one of the linchpins. I think it's going to be Quinn Meinerz. And Garrett Bolles, whatever you want to say about Garrett Bolles, he's, in my opinion, a top 10 to 12 left tackle, and he's going to be very important this year with a rookie quarterback starting back there. So it's close. Bolles or Quinn Meinerz for me.
Very good. Trevor, what are your thoughts, man? Who's the linchpin on the offensive line?
Yeah, I think it's Quentin Meinerz. I think without a doubt, I think he's one of the best guards in the NFL, and he's pretty soon he's going to be paid like one. So we'll definitely see how much the Broncos truly value Quentin Meinerz, but Quentin Meinerz for sure.
I'm gonna go with D-Rock. I'm gonna say that it is Ben Powers because I think right now where we need this offensive line to be, we've seen what we've seen from Garrett Bolles, and we've seen what we've seen from Quinn Meinerz. We don't know who our center is going to be. We know who our right tackle is going to be. And Ben Powers, quite honestly, I think is that main cog piece that needs to step up. I'm not as worried about the right tackle, but if we can't get better in the middle of this line, if that center can't rely on that left guard, then this is going to be very, very, very long year. I think that Ben Powers needs to step up, and he is the linchpin. If he fails and we're scrambling around trying to figure out who our left guard is because it's not Ben Powers, I think we're in big, big trouble. So I'm going to go over to Phil McLaughlin, and he goes, I'm going to take these one at a time. I'm going to go back around. I'll start with Trevor on this one and ask, does Damari Mathis make this team?
I think he does. I think it's definitely again, it's a competition thing. But Denver needs to do everything they can to get Riley Moss involved, and so yeah, that's probably Mathis not being a starter. But I think he could be a nice depth piece. I think Abrams Drain is another guy that will push. I think Mathis, for a starting role. Mathis is definitely on the hot seat. He's on the bubble for me, but I do ultimately think that he will make this roster. So yeah, I do think that Mathis makes this roster, but again, starter probably not, but a nice depth piece at corner. Yeah, I think so.
Over to the judge, man. What are you thinking about Damari Mathis?
Same thing. I think he probably makes the 53. I don't think he will be a starter. He has a lot to gain back after the way he played last year, which was horrible. But this new kickoff rule, I think it's going to keep guys around that you don't expect. I think this kickoff rule is going to keep some guys that you would expect to get cut around just because of it.
Interesting. Kickoff rule is something we need to talk more about, Jody, and we'll probably have to get into that in future episodes. That's a good call out. What a major change that's going to be. And like you said, it's going to be a major roster shift, man. Damari Mathis was my guy, man. If you want to rewind to beginning of last year, after getting back from training camp last year, I was so high on Damari Mathis, and boy, did it go so wrong. And my only concern is this guy's going to have a hard time with all the competition that's been brought in, and gotten healthy. We've lost maybe a Fabian Moreau, but my goodness, it seems like we've added depth and youth all around on that cornerback position, or got healthy. Like you said, Riley Moss is the guy that needs to really step up this year and is expected to. I'll go the opposite side of the coin because I'm like with you guys. I'm so borderline. I don't know. I'd like him to make this roster. I really, really liked what he was doing in training camp last year. I feel bad that it didn't play out for him out on the field when games mattered. And so I'd like him to have that opportunity, especially here on the Broncos, so I could see it a little bit more. But I'll go ahead and I'll go the opposite side of the coin. I'm going to say that he doesn't. Now we're going to go to a question that I don't know if this is a real question. Is this a real question? Jody, do you think Troutman doesn't make this team?
No, because we have no depth there at tight end. A bunch of unknowns. This is a Sean Payton guy, and we don't know what Greg Dulcich is going to do. Lucas Kroll, although looks great, is raw, and if I was going to guess, Troutman is still probably your starter week 1.
All right. So from questionable, not on the team, from Phil McLaughlin to starter for Jody Moncrief, What are you thinking, Trevor? Somewhere in the middle, or are you going to agree with Philly and agree with Jody? What are your thoughts here, bud?
I think Troutman makes the roster again. Let's remember they brought him back on a 2-year, $7.5 million contract, and he was a guy that Sean Payton made sure he brought back. So I think definitely, and Troutman could have went elsewhere. He was supposed to go elsewhere, and Sean Payton ended up making sure that he was a guy that they brought back along with Justin Strnad as well. So I do think he makes the roster again. I don't think there's not enough there proven to me to say that Troutman can make the roster again. Troutman's kind of that guy that he can run block, but he can also be a guy that can catch passes down the field. He's not going to be a vertical threat like a Kroll possibly could be, or a Dulcich could possibly be, but he's definitely a guy that I do think is that solid tight end for this team. You would hope that Kroll or Dulcich by the end of the year, one of those two would overpass a guy like Adam Troutman, and you're talking about Kroll or Dulcich being your starting tight end next year.
Yeah, Phil, if it wasn't for the Dulcich dilemma that we're in and his injury and not even playing as of yet through minicamp, OTAs, you name it, we haven't seen him out there, catching live balls at least. Maybe there's a chance. Troutman, if you guys don't know, he snagged a little injury as well, so he hasn't been out there running around. So doesn't necessarily help his position either. But I agree. Troutman is that Sean Payton pick guy, and he's the guy that's probably most trusted in that tight end position right now for Sean Payton. We'll see if that changes as Lucas Kroll and others kind of come up the line, and maybe, hopefully, Greg Dulcich is healthy, and we get to see the hair out there running around again. So Big E Broncos coming in saying, how's everybody doing tonight? Big E Bronco, we're doing fantastic, man. We're about wrapping up a show, man. It's amazing how quick it went. I didn't think the segment was going to go as long as it did, so we're going to flip the second half of our segment to another day, another segment, another show. But I appreciate all the commentary and the questions and everything. Paul's just letting us know that Bo knows Forsyth's back end quite well, so that might be a reason that he gets the nod.
Well, and remember, Sean Payton talked to Alex Forsyth when talked about Bo Nix when he was wanting more info on Bo Nix. He talked to Alex Forsyth on that, so Sean Payton knows that Forsyth, him and Bo Nix's connection, and Forsyth obviously must have said some pretty damn good things about Bo Nix. So, that's completely accurate.
That's completely accurate about his backside. Trevor, I'll go to you first then on this one because it's a great transition. It's the last one of the night, man. Russell Wilson isn't here anymore, man. Russell Wilson is, for all intents and purposes, had a pretty dang good year last year. I'd say Sean Payton did pretty well with him. Certainly got a lot more out of him than what we saw at the end of his Seattle career or certainly in the Hackett years. He's off, and he's a potential playoff quarterback with the Pittsburgh Steelers now. So got to talk about it, man. Talk about Russell Wilson, what the loss of Russell Wilson will mean to this team, and rank his replacements. What do you think, Trevor?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not going to sit here and blame Russell Wilson for everything that happened last year. Do I think Russell Wilson has regressed in his career? Yes, I do think he's regressed. I do think that Sean Payton, it drew Sean Payton, crazy, just some of the stuff Russell Wilson did, not seeing over the middle of the field and just not fitting in Sean Payton's offense. It's just they were never fit together. It's hard to grade that right now because we have not seen Bo Nix yet. I will say I think that it is an upgrade. I would give it a solid on a scale of 1 to 10, and I know I've been going off of letter grades. I apologize for that.
No worries.
But I would say it's probably a solid B right now. I think Bo Nix is in the Sean Payton's offense. Pretty early on on this very podcast, we had a pretty good idea that Bo Nix fit Sean Payton's system pretty well, and that ended up actually happening. They ended up taking him 12th overall. I think Russell Wilson will go off hopefully in Pittsburgh and be better off. I think he has a better team around him than he did in Denver. I think Russell Wilson, when George Payton first traded for him, I think he was expected to come in and kind of be the hero, right? Save the day. And And unfortunately, I don't think it was fair to Russell Wilson. I don't think it was fair for the Denver Broncos to make that trade at the time. I think if you go back, you probably would be making that trade. In George Paton's second year, I think he wanted to make a splash, and it just did not work out for either side. And Denver's having to pay the price for it, and Russell Wilson gets a chance to go play for a playoff team. So, excited for Russell Wilson, and excited to hopefully we get a W against Russell Wilson. Hopefully he don't play too well when he plays the Denver Broncos. But overall, I think Bo Nix will be more of an upgrade for us over Russell Wilson. Not necessarily number wise, but I just think from what you see on the field, I think he will be.
Biggie Broncos chiming in over on YouTube saying, I've been over on a Pittsburgh Steelers podcast trying to get people to bet that Russell Wilson takes 30 or more sacks. Well, we appreciate the support of Russell Wilson. That's got me cracking up. Appreciate that, Biggie Bronco. But Jody, what are we losing in one Russell Wilson? And how are you ranking, or what are we gaining, losing with his replacement?
I'm just like what Trevor said. I mean, I was a Russ guy, but from day one, Russ and Peyton were like oil and vinegar, or water and vinegar, or whatever the saying is. They did not mesh. When your coach is calling your franchise quarterback out like week or right from the beginning, stop kissing babies and stuff, there was a problem. And for as much as everyone wants to say he adjusted to Russ, he adjusted some stuff, but he didn't fully commit to Russ. He didn't, and it is what it is. Now the only thing I will disagree with what Trevor said is, does George Paton regret trading for Russ? That maybe no, but I think he definitely regrets trading for Russ and then hiring Nathaniel Hackett as his head coach. If you bring in another coach to fit with Russ, Dan Quinn, whoever, you may get different results. I don't know, but it is what it is. I mean, I liked Russ. There just came a point, and you could see it early, but I just go back to the San Diego game when he threw that bomb touchdown to Cortland Sutton, and afterwards Sean Payton was interviewed, and he was pissed off that happened, that he didn't throw it to Judy. He missed the wrong read, or that play happened. You could just tell that it was done from there. And the behind the scenes stuff, whether he was asked to take a pay cut or get benched or whatever, we had rich owners, so it wasn't a money thing. So I mean, he tried with Russ, or tried to make it look like he tried with Russ, but there was really nothing Russ could do unless he took this team deep into the playoffs. And like Trevor said, I am in agreement that you're going to see a lot more over the field stuff. You're going to see the ball out quick. You are going to see stuff that you didn't see last year, and numbers wise, that may not be better than what Wilson had, but it is going to be more of what Sean Payton wants, and he may not have 26 touchdowns, but Denver may score more points because of it.
Fair enough. I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for hopefully embracing a rookie quarterback, truly the guy that we've taken at the top of our draft board as high as we could possibly go, and we support him and we run with him. And I think that Bo Nix, absolutely, as Trevor mentioned earlier, is a good fit for the Sean Payton offense. I'll get the posse riled up a little bit here. I was on the opposite end. I was not really a Russell Wilson fan, especially once we started seeing it play out here in Denver. And the more I saw it play out, the more I felt like his days had just have gone in the past. His best days are in the past, are gone by him. It just 2013 Super Bowl was a very long time ago, and I think he's lost a little bit here, there, everywhere. Not a ton, but when you lose bits and pieces, it adds up. And I think Sean Payton did an amazing job in getting the production that he got out of Russell Wilson and the numbers that he got out of Russell Wilson and the touchdowns that he got out of Russell Wilson and the completion percentage. You can go through it all. I think he did about as much as you possibly could do with a Russell Wilson, statistically speaking. But that being said, I think we got about as far as we could get with a Russell Wilson at the helm of the Denver Broncos. So I'm excited to see, hopefully, some youth, some better chemistry between coach and quarterback, and future holds unlimitless possibilities. When you're lined up like this. So that's what I'm excited for. As far as ranking, yeah, I think it's going to be about what Trevor says. If I was going to rank it on a number scale, it's probably like a 7 or an 8, as far as where Bo Nix is coming in. It's going to be a little bit of a step back. Our good friend Kurt Valente over on K&K, he was talking about how Russell Wilson was so great, but then is expecting more out of the Denver Broncos this year with Bo Nix. Well, that kind of seems a little bit backwards for me. I think if you think you're taking a little bit of a step backward in your quarterback, at least for year one, how are you expecting more out of your team overall? I understand. Believe me, a lot of people are like over the middle, and like you guys were talking about, quicker passes and maybe points and touchdowns are two different things and stuff like that. But I'm not going to get overly optimistic. We'll go through a schedule show at some point, but I'm not going to get overly optimistic right now.
Well, and I was going to say,
go ahead, buddy.
I mean, Sean Payton. It's one of those things where you have to be spot on with Bo Nix. I don't know that Sean Payton sees another quarterback. As far as if Bo Nix isn't the guy, how could you trust Sean Payton to evaluate quarterbacks after this? I mean, that's the thing. So you took a chance on you ate all that money getting rid of Russell Wilson, $85 million. You're paying him not to be on this roster, and B, you drafted Bo Nix high, that pick 12. So again, there's just two parts of that where it's just like, well, Sean Payton, he's got to be right. I mean, I don't know how your Broncos ownership, you've done everything you possibly could, and it's everything that Sean Payton has asked. I don't see how you can trust him if this is not the right pick and Bo Nix is not the guy. So of course, again, I think Bo Nix will fit Sean Payton's offense better. I think he will do things Sean Payton wants to do. I think that's great. But it's got to work out. There is going to be a lot of pressure on Sean Payton over the next 2 years, I would say, to make sure that this Bo Nix pick does work out. Because if it doesn't, I don't know if Sean Payton's going to be around much more after that. But you have to get this right.
Yeah. Let's hope it's all right, Broncos country. I have pretty good faith, man. I really like the way the training camp, OTA, or not OT training camp, but OTAs, mini camp have really went. So, man, we busted through an hour, guys. Like I said, we only got to like half an agenda, but we need to say our goodbyes, man. Need to say goodbye to everybody that was in the chat, which has absolutely been amazing, guys. Lots of new names. Lots and lots and lots of comments and commentary and side conversations as well, and maybe a bad word here and there that we usually don't put on screen, or at least say, but we appreciate that as well. Appreciate the passion. So let's say some goodbyes, guys, but let's start off with Mr. Jody the Judge Moncrief. Jody, any final thoughts, and then say some goodbyes if you like.
Good show as always. Good debate. Can't wait for training camp to start. This time of the year sucks for watching sports, especially if your baseball team's not doing the hottest. Other than that, I can't wait for next week. Get back into more debate. Try not to go down the Russ hole too much, so because you could do a whole show just on Russ. So
sure could. Jody, appreciate you coming in, man. Appreciate you being part of the talk. I know it's tough not to go down that Russ rabbit hole, but I think we did a pretty good job there. Maybe that's why we had to leave it to last, so that we knew we had to wrap up. But excited for the future, man. Lots of guys that have left, but I think the main thing as we kind of went through this was, maybe we're not that bad off, even though there were some pretty big names that have exited out these doors. Trevor, man. We got to say goodbye to everybody. We gotta get out of here until our next Tuesday show. What are your thoughts, buddy, before we get out?
No, I just want to thank Phil McLaughlin for sending stars once again. Phil, you're amazing. I just want to thank all of our posse for being here tonight on a Friday night. Again, we do this show for you guys. All of these agendas that we're together, do it for you guys, and hope you guys enjoyed the show tonight. And have a great weekend and be safe. And we'll see you guys on Tuesday night. And just go Broncos. And can't wait for training camp. It's going to be right around the corner before we know it.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. If you guys don't know, and I'll just put it out there, the hope is, fingers crossed, maybe like I'll put it at 85% right now. I've made the last 2 training camps. Hope to be down there at training camp, bringing you guys coverage and footage again this year. So, word on the street is we should get some training camp dates announced next week. So looking forward to that, and I'm sure everybody else will be too. I'll do my best. Fourth horseman. If you guys don't know, I am Keith. Got Trevor here, the judge right below me, but the fourth horseman is Mr. Albert Knoppers, and he does something like this. I want to say thank you to everybody that chimed in this evening, including Ernie Mays, Mark Calderio, D-Rock, Pearl Heater, Phil McLaughlin, dropping stars as well. Phil, thank you again, as Trevor mentioned. Yeah, big clap it up. We appreciate that. We had Paul coming in. Paul was blowing up the chat board, man, and we appreciate that, man. Absolutely appreciate that. Who else do we have? Any other names that I'm missing or I'm thinking of? Big E Bronco. Yeah, Big E Bronco came in big as well, dropping a lot of comments, a lot of conversation as well. And I apologize if you guys are watching after the fact. My sharing ability got put in jail on Facebook. I usually get out and reach out to a few more of you. We'll see if we can get this out to all those other Facebook pages as well. Biggie Bronco, wants a smile from Jody. He says Jody needs to learn how to smile. There he is. Yeah, he smiles. He smiles, man. You should see him after a Denver Bronco win, buddy. I can't wait for it next year. You'll see big old smiles. You'll have to be tuned in then. That being said, guys, we do need to get out of here. Remember, like, share, subscribe. We have Denver Bronco Roundup. We have Rocky Mountain Sports Network. You can find them both on Facebook. Find Rocky Mountain Sports Network out there on YouTube. You can watch us that way. Find the Rocky Mountain Sports Network website. Check out the Morgan Trinkets Facebook page. Man, I'm telling you what, guys, we appreciate you guys so much. We keep growing and growing and growing, and we can't wait to see you again on Friday night, because we come at you, or on Tuesday night, I'm sorry, because we come at you every Tuesday, every Friday, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Can't wait to get with you guys again and talk some more Denver Bronco football. But we're going to leave like we always do. Remember, keep your feet in your stirrups, keep your guns in your holsters, keep the Broncos in your heart. And until next time, we're out of here, guys and gals. Good night.